This is the Silver Wolf Howl. I am Angela, and today we are chatting to Neil van der Scholtz, the Managing Director at GeneDiagnostics. We have a lovely view of Table Mountain today as we're sitting here at the offices of GeneDiagnostics, and we're about to chat to Neil van der Scholtz, who is the Managing Director here. I am so eager to find out more about this interesting company. So, hi Neil, and thanks for having us here.
Good morning, Angela, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this podcast.
After getting that tour of your offices from you, Neil, I'm so eager to find out more about this company. So tell us a little bit more about GeneDiagnostics. When was it started? How did it come about?
So GeneDiagnostics is a diagnostic laboratory focusing only on human genetics. It was started about 15 years ago by Professor Monique Zaal, and the primary purpose of its reason for existence is actually to make genetic tests affordable and accessible to ordinary people.
I had a look at your website, and you have quite a list of services there. Could you briefly explain to us what they are?
We offer a wide range of human genetic tests. They include disease tests, which is cardiac, oncology, iron dysregulation, respiratory disorders, etc., etc. We also do pharmacogenetics. And basically what that is how the genes affect the body's response to certain medication, and thereby eliminating or reducing adverse drug reactions. We do whole exome sequencing, which is our most comprehensive genetic test. And really, we only get these tests when accurate diagnosis of difficult medical conditions become critical. So it really is a comprehensive test, honing in on the entire exome, which gives you a 360-degree view of any genetic disorders that may exist. In addition to that, we do forensic tests, which obviously covers quite a bit of investigative work. So we look for the presence of human DNA at crime scenes for further analysis and investigation. We assist with the identification of deceased persons. I've got quite an interesting story to tell you when we have time about that. We give opinions on the validity of evidence submitted, but as you know, forensic testing and investigations are very varied in nature. So it depends on the specific situation, what we do, what tests we do, what methodologies we use. And then in addition to that, we do kinship tests. There's a huge demand among people for a sense of belonging. So we find adults looking for their siblings, their parents, and then we do a lot of paternity tests, both for individuals, but we do quite a number for courts across South Africa as well.
That sounds so fascinating. I'm interested in a few particular things. Could you elaborate some more on your pharmacogenetic and your whole exome sequencing tests, as well as the forensics?
So in terms of pharmacogenetics, we're finding quite an interesting increase in the requests for pharmacogenetics. And basically what pharmacogenetics is to look at how the genes affect the body's response to certain medications, thereby minimizing or eliminating adverse drug reactions. This is very much becoming popular with young adults, specifically where medical doctors are not able to accurately diagnose the condition, but more importantly, treat the condition from a pharmaceutical stroke drug perspective. So what we then do is we will look at how your body metabolizes certain medications. We would give you an indication of what the dosages are, to eliminate toxicity and adverse drug reactions, etc. This is also what they generally refer to as precision medicine, because it's tailor-made to what your genetic makeup is. Whole exome sequencing, it's a comprehensive genetic test. It's the most comprehensive test that we have. We test thousands and thousands of genes. This is normally required when an accurate diagnosis has been difficult and a rapid identification of medical condition becomes critical to effectively treat the patient. And there's a lot of data analysis that goes into that with genetic experts. That's our flagship at the moment, our flagship test. Then we do something you'll find quite interesting. We do quite a bit of forensic tests. We do that for members of the public directly. We work with estate attorneys to determine kinship or relatedness. And we also work with private investigators and some of the courts. In this case, we look for the presence of human DNA at crime scenes for further analysis and investigation. We assist with the identification of deceased people. And we also give opinions on the validity of evidence submitted from a DNA perspective in court cases, etc.
Okay, so then do you mostly do work for South African Police Services and the medical fraternity?
So we work with a variety of stakeholders. Certainly the medical fraternity is a big part of our customer base, but we also work with attorneys, especially estate attorneys who want to wrap up estates. We work with courts across the country. We do a lot of work with consumers directly, and we do a little bit of work with SAPs. They have their own laboratories that they use, and they're ramping up that facilities at the moment. So those are our key clients that we work with currently.
Ah, okay, I get it. So what is your role here at GeneDiagnostics?
I'm effectively responsible to the shareholders for the smooth running of the company, and that's all aspects of the company, from its customers to its suppliers, making sure that our suppliers are on board and that we have good service from them, making sure that our staff are motivated and happy, making sure that our reports meet the quality standards that we set for ourselves. We're also busy implementing ISO 17025 within the lab. We're at the end of that process now. So ultimately, I'm responsible to the shareholders for the entire operations of the company. Obviously, I can't do that myself. I've got a highly motivated team of people, skilled individuals who assist and making sure that happens. What I've done is implement proper systems within the organization, and we've revamped the customer experience completely so that we can have happy and content customers, because word of mouth in this industry is a huge advert. You know, by the time somebody comes to us for a test, there's been many arguments, there's been sleepless nights, there's been accusations, and so by the time they come to us, it's almost a last resort. So we try and make it as pleasant as possible and painless as possible. So we've worked quite hard in ensuring that, both in terms of our interaction with people, but also from how we present our reports to make it as user-friendly as possible. So yeah, that's what I'm responsible for. I need to ensure that everything runs smoothly and that we make money.
Yeah, that's essential. Hey. So then tell me more about you. What is your background?
So I have a background in accounting. I started out as an accountant. I then moved about 2 decades ago. I moved into management consulting with one of the biggest professional services firms in the world. And that I did for about 20 years, 18 to 20 years. I then decided to go work for myself. And GeneDiagnostics was one of my clients. I was quite intrigued by the technology that they're using and the difference that they make in ordinary people's lives. And I had an opportunity to join GeneDiagnostics a couple of years ago, which I then did. And it's been probably the most rewarding couple of years of my life. I'm learning every day, but I think that it's absolutely rewarding in terms of assisting ordinary people with getting closure, depending on the test that we do. Getting closure in terms of relatedness or relatives or parental tests, but also assisting people with disease in identifying exactly what the underlying causes are, and then managing that with the medical professionals, that the correct and effective treatment is administered. So it's quite satisfying from that perspective.
I'm sure, because giving people that closure or answers, from a pharmacological perspective, it must be very rewarding to see them go, ha, and finally have those answers that they're looking for. So I'm sure it is rewarding. What are some of the challenges that you face in this industry, both personally and as a company?
So, genetics has enjoyed an unprecedented prominence globally over the last couple of years, and I think COVID has exacerbated that and really promoted genetics as a discipline. And that has brought its challenges, both on a personal and from on a personal level, but also from a company perspective. Personally, I struggle to understand why we in South Africa export so many of our tests when there's ample skilled scientists within the country that are able to deliver that service or to be employed in that field. Personally, I also need to stay abreast of all developments within the industry, and there's a proliferation of developments, both in terms of number of tests that are being developed, but also the number of drugs that are coming onto the market all the time, specifically for our pharmacogenetics tests. So that takes a bit of time, and I do spend quite a bit of time in making sure that myself and the rest of the organization is up to speed with that. From a company perspective, because of the prominence that genetic testing has enjoyed over the last couple of years, there's a number of new entrants entering South Africa. Some of them are merely post offices who ship tests out to their mother country, and others are not necessarily doing the industry any favors with the quality of tests that they provide, quality of service, and also mystifying a lot of what genetic testing is about. So we do find that people become skeptical. So there's a lot of education that's required, both to the general public, but also to medical practitioners who can become skeptical because of bad service or bad experiences with other genetic labs. And then I think, like most South African companies, there's a tendency to work with only the big companies, and that has caused quite a bit of job losses in the industry. We've been fortunate, we've been growing, but I do see when I speak to some of my colleagues that the big organizations, and both here and abroad, they do enjoy the lion's share of the attention, which I suppose is normal in the South African context. But it is a challenge for us as well.
Having to demystify or work back on a bad experience is always a challenge, especially when you're in this kind of industry. So I can just imagine the difficulties that you guys face there as well, because we do on our side as well. Tell us a little bit more about the organization, the business and roles people play.
So as I said to you, this company, GeneDiagnostics, was started by Professor Monique Zal. She obtained a PhD in human genetics from Oxford and Stellenbosch University. And in terms of our organization, the two main areas that we've insourced is obviously the technical lab work. So we do all of our tests inside these four walls here. So that arm of the business, they're responsible for obviously analyzing all the DNA, writing the reports, making sure that we follow our quality management principles, and they use a range of equipment to do that. The other big arm that we have internally is an admin arm. That's where we focus on our customers and our customer experience, new business logistics, because we deliver service across South Africa and to some countries across the African continent, and so the admin hub is responsible for that. We rely heavily on social media, so we use the platforms, the professional LinkedIn platform, and we use Facebook for ads and customer interactions. And then our website, our website is quite capable of taking transactions, and it's got all the information that we need. So that's how we are structured as an organization. As I said to you earlier on, primary purpose of our existence, or the primary reason for our existence, is to make genetic tests accessible and affordable to ordinary South Africans.
Talking about tests, how does a normal person on the, just a normal individual wanting to do certain tests, how do they go about contacting you, or what do they need to know, or what do they need to do before contacting you? What is that whole process like for somebody that has no idea what this industry is about, but they need these kinds of tests that you offer?
Thanks for that question. It's actually quite simple. I mean, we use a number of channels through which customers can contact us. We have a dedicated telephone line, 2 numbers that can be used. We have an email address that people can use. People can contact us via WhatsApp and Facebook, and they can contact us via our website. Once you've been in contact with us, we will send you the relevant information depending on which test you want. Now, generally in South Africa and across the world, genetic tests are governed by strict regulations, so we need to have the proper consents in place. So we will explain all of that. We'll give you the price. We'll explain the process that's involved in that information email to put everybody at ease, because I do understand that it could be intimidating to certain people. Once you're ready for the test, you transact with us in terms of making a payment. We then either send you a DNA test kit to your home where you can actually do this sampling yourself. We give you instructions on that. And it's as simple as taking a DNA sample from the inside of your mouth using a buccal swab. You just swipe it about 10 times or so. That's enough DNA for us to do an accurate test, depending on the test that you want. If you're not comfortable with doing it at home, you can visit one of our channel partners, and at the moment we're working with selected Clicks clinics across the country, where you can then have your DNA sample taken by a professional nurse. We then arrange, whether you're doing it at home or at the Clicks, we arrange for the DNA kit to be delivered to your home or at the particular Clicks clinics you choose to work with. And once you've been there, we collect it. We do our tests here, and we send you the results in an encrypted format or password protected format to your email address. And then you can discuss it with either your medical practitioner or your attorney, or whoever you would need to discuss the test results with. So we try and make it as plain and simple as possible and painless as possible for ordinary people to use our service.
That does not sound intimidating or difficult at all. It's a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So that's great to make it that accessible and easy for people to get into this world, which sometimes can feel a bit scary, like because we don't understand all of the science and technology behind it. So it does sound a little scary, and knowing that it's that simple does help a lot, to make it more of a choice for people to have, rather than kind of running away and thinking of other options. I know we did talk a little bit, or you did mention a little bit about this before, about what is so satisfying about your work and that kind of thing. But let's talk a little bit more about it. What is it that you find most satisfying about this work that you do?
There's a number of things that I find satisfying about my work, but firstly, I work with a group of fantastic people from whom I learn all the time. But if I were to say what is the number one in terms of being most satisfied in terms of my work, is really making a difference to ordinary people's lives in terms of identification of the underlying causes of a medical condition, which then leads to effective treatment. In terms of treatment, we've got a proliferation of drugs that is available. And if drugs or pharmaceutical products are not metabolized or absorbed by a person's body, it then can lead to toxicity, which has other side effects. So the identification of the underlying causes, and then hence the effective treatment is quite important in enhancing people's quality of life. And then the other aspect that I quite enjoy about my job is providing results that assist people to find closure, whether it be parental tests, whether it be forensic tests, whether it be kinship tests, people just understanding that the results can help them in terms of finding closure and then moving on with their lives. And that's quite satisfying. I mean, we have quite a number of excellent testimonials where we've changed people's lives, and that's very gratifying to myself, but also to the team of excellent people that I work with.
Yeah, I can see why that is so satisfying for you. It must be really nice to see that effect in people's lives. I see Ryan is looking quizzical, and when he looks like that, he usually has a question. So I'm going to let him ask this question.
Neil, I've got a question. You have a friend. She meets me, and she says, Neil, I met Ryan, and I need you to tell me what type of person he is. Is he mentally stable? And is there anything that I need to look out for that people lie? And I want to know if you can find out if he's all there in his head. Are you able to do that?
The short answer, Ryan, is from a legal perspective, we're not allowed to do any DNA tests without the person being tested's consent. So if you give consent, we can do the test. If you don't, we can't do the test. However, from a technical perspective, we are able to identify genetic mutations that could lead to unstable behavior, which is what my friend would like to know. Is Ryan stable or not? But we cannot do it without the proper consent. And that's been legislated in South African legislation and across the globe. Then we also have aspects that come into play in terms of the POPI Act that we have to abide by. But the tests do exist. There are tests that would give one an idea of whether you have a genetic propensity to be mentally unstable, and then we can probably look at what medication is best for you.
That is fascinating. I never knew that existed. That is really interesting. It leads to my next question. You must have some really interesting stories that you, have had experience with or that you've dealt with in different cases. Do you have a story that you can share with us?
So there are many interesting stories that I can share with you, but I think the most relevant one for today is a situation or an inquiry that we had not too long ago. It's by the brother of an individual who's been incarcerated, found guilty of a sexual offense. He's been in prison for a number of years. And his brother basically asked us to have a look at the validity of the report that was submitted, DNA testing report that was submitted as evidence, which was a key piece of evidence in the state's case. We had a look at the report that was used and submitted as evidence, and the report did not meet the minimum requirements to draw a conclusion or an opinion. But this person's been in prison for, a couple of years already. So those kind of situations exist, and you almost take it personally when situations like that arise, where people are wrongfully or rightfully. We can't comment on whether he is guilty or not, but the evidence that was submitted was not sufficient to draw a conclusion and hence find the person guilty. So those are quite interesting stories, and we find quite a number of them where family members are desperate for the truth and to find justice.
That just shows how vitally important it is to do these kinds of procedures properly and that all the relevant procedures are followed accurately. It's also one of the frustrations that we have in our industry, where people kind of want to shortcut certain things like costs, for example, and then, it just ends up being a mess. Then you must have had some gratifying customer experiences that kind of was out of the ordinary, or that gave you a different outcome to the norm.
Yes, Angela, one of the most gratifying experiences I've had here at GeneDiagnostics was a family member of a deceased individual approached us to identify his father, who had been deceased for 20 years. We then had to go through a entire legal process in terms of exhuming the body. Get a pathologist on board, get permission, SAPs, clearances and everything. They then gave us a part of the individual's skeleton, which may have contained enough DNA for us to do a test. Fortunately, we were able to find DNA from that particular part of the person's body. Normally, the thicker part of the skeleton and teeth, they're quite good in terms of retaining DNA. But it wasn't a simple process because we had to ensure that the proper chain of custody was adhered to, etc., so that we can give the family complete assurance whether it is or is not their father. The long and the short of it is we were able to get DNA from the person's skeleton after being buried for 20 years. We then matched his DNA profile with that of a family member, and there was a conclusive match. And the gratifying part of that is it gave the family closure. It gave them peace. So those are the kind of small stories that come along from time to time that really makes my team and I, it motivates us actually. So there are many of those kind of stories, but that's the one that stands out for me.
Wow, that is really a cool story. That is so awesome. I can just imagine what that family was going through and then finally getting the answers. What you do here, what you guys do here is really so fascinating and interesting, and I'm so glad that we could be here today and for you to take the time out of your day to chat to us. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing all your knowledge and more about your business with us.
Thank you, Angela and Ryan. It's really nice to meet you, and it's a pleasure. I really enjoyed this, and I think that it goes a long way in terms of demystifying what genetic tests is about. I think people will find it quite interesting the moment they start engaging with ourselves or any of our competitors in terms of the benefits that they can derive from a genetic test. Thank you.